Well, I've got my mate Keith Hillier with me. Love this racing section. Keith, how did you find them yesterday at the Valley?
Oh, I liked them at the Valley. We saw St Covert really pass the test, although in defeat, because he ran second to the stablemate Blevick. He hasn't gone. He's still there, and he's going to be competitive this spring. But Vandy's back. We saw Vandercross flash home for fourth placing in Sydney.
Yeah, fair to say, no doubt. Sydney took the honours yesterday with the George Main, the Group 1. John Morrish had the favourite in the race, March Hare. He ran third. He also had Ruslan in one of the big sprints. He was successful. John's with Max Presnell this morning. Good on you, Max. How are you?
Well, moderately good, thanks to Ruslan. It wasn't a happy day apart from Ruslan, but fortunately this promising sprinter did the right thing.
And John, what about March Hare? There were some reports that he may have been galloped on in the run. He did run a brave third. He wasn't far away behind Durbridge and Brave Warrior at the end.
No, he had Kingston Bay on his heels for about 600 metres of the race while he was held up behind Durbridge, so he was probably lucky he didn't have any serious injuries.
Why won't you bring him to Melbourne, John? March Hare, you made that statement weeks ago before he started winning the big ones.
Yes, I took him to Melbourne last preparation, and I barrier trialled him at Moonee Valley, and Stephen King rode him, and he said he went quite well against sort of moderate company, and then I raced him in probably an unsuitable race, the William Reid, and he was brushed by the winner at the, say, 600-700, and he was put off stride, and Brent Thompson told me that day he didn't handle the track very well, so I think it's probably the only realistic option after next Saturday, so I think I'll got more options in the autumn up to the Doncaster or All Age Stakes.
Well, let's have a look at the race yesterday, Max. It was dominated by Simon Marshall, I thought, on Durbridge. He really tactically outrode them, didn't he? He slowed them up and then was able to sprint away.
Yeah, well, they allowed him to dictate terms. Lee Friedman maintains that Simon Marshall is one of the few real weight-for-age riders in Australia, and I'm beginning to agree with him. That's Durbridge in front, allowed to coast. Now, watch down the outside. You'll note Viandercross. Now, this was a phenomenal run. You're poking up on the inside is John's horse, March Hare, there with Cassidy pumping away. That's Brave Warrior down the outside. Look at the extreme outside, Viandercross gobbling them up with every stride. That is the old Viandercross. He's certainly back. A phenomenal effort in as much as the tempo didn't suit him. He would have made up 10 lengths on Durbridge. As we know, an outstanding weight-for-age horse, particularly when he's allowed to dictate terms, which was the case yesterday. I wouldn't wipe March Hare on that run, but certainly the eye-catcher of the race was the V.
His jockey, Jimmy Walker, said Viandercross is back as he was 2 or 3 seasons ago. I know he let us down last year. He wasn't on form last year. But could he be back to his best, Max?
I think he is back to his best. There is a possibility he could run in the Epsom. John Wheeler said yesterday he was leaning towards the Epsom. Chris Turner, the owner, said he'd rather go to Melbourne. But the last horse to win the Epsom Melbourne Cup double was Night March in 1929. Ironically, Night March had the same weight that Viandercross has got this year, 59.
Galilee almost did it, didn't he? Chantal beat him up there, and then he came down. Well, what barrier do you want to draw with March Hare, John, if you've got a choice? Where would you like to draw
anywhere
them?
between 6 and 11, I'd say would be pretty good, Bruce.
And is he the sort of horse, do you think he can back up week to week? You have spaced his runs. I know that's been the program in the autumn because that's the way the races are.
Yes, I think he'll be able to back up well.
OK, well, he's going to be hard to beat. There's no doubt about that. He's a quality horse, a weight-for-age horse. You need that to win an Epsom handicap. The Colin Stephen yesterday, these stayers don't look all that flash, I reckon. And that's taking nothing away from Restitution and changing the blinkers yesterday, but they looked a fairly average lot, Max.
Oh, very average lot. I want you, if you can pick him in the picture, the grey horse at the tail of the field, Gladstoneberry. I believe that Gladstoneberry showed all the ingredients of a horse who was doped. Couldn't get out of his own road. He had, of course, symptoms of the better blocker syndrome. I do believe that the stewards are looking into this, and it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. Of course, we had an outbreak in South Australia last week, or confirmation that a horse had been got at over there, and certainly I know there are grave concerns about the run of Gladstoneberry. Alas, we chopped our picture out a shade too quick because he was trailing the field home.
Well, was a sample taken from him, Max?
Yes.
Well, it will be interesting. It's a big statement.
And Restitution, Max, well, is he your metropolitan pick or no?
Oh, no, Umpala. I think Umpala will win the Metro. What do you think, John? What's first leg of the double is undoubtedly March Hare. What's the second leg?
I agree with Max. I think Umpala certainly beat not a great field in the Newcastle Cup, but he won really easily, and he's training on, so I think he'd expect him to be nearly favourite.
John, blokes that agree with Max consistently go broke, you know, so it's only one out of one.
Well, we're agreeing today.
Just be careful. What about the Bill Ritchie, when your horse Ruslan was successful, ridden off the pace a bit in new colours? Has it had a change of ownership, is it, John, the horse?
No, the colours were owned by some friends of my parents-in-law, and they don't use them anymore, so they'll probably become more like my main colours.
OK, he's in the black cap and the gold. Pretty impressive, Max.
Always had them covered, Ruslan, and I think this is the way March Hare should be ridden. Should be given plenty of room and down the outside. That's where you'll see the best of March Hare. You're seeing the best of Ruslan now, top-class sprinter, one that'll certainly make his presence felt when he goes to Melbourne.
John, when you made that statement weeks ago that March Hare wouldn't come here, at the same time you made the statement that Ruslan would. I presume that is still on target.
Yes, he'll probably go down to Melbourne after next week and have a trial or two trials up the straight and then run in the Gadsden. Or I'm not sure who the sponsor is now.
Yeah, that's the big race. Now, if he doesn't win that Group 1 race, is he going to go to Hong Kong for the Hong Kong Bowl if you've got an invitation?
I've nominated him, and you have notification of acceptance of that nomination, I think, on the week of Derby week. OK,
just one question about Espinosa, Max, because his form here was excellent. Did he fire a shot yesterday?
No, he didn't seem to be able to quicken, Bruce. You couldn't compare his performance with that of Ruslan, but again, the Epsom's a different type of race, but I wouldn't want to be backing Espinosa on what he did yesterday.
He did have a setback, hadn't he? What about Blevik and St Covert? We now go to the Bill Stud, used to be the Moonee Valley Stakes in the old days. Blevik had a beautiful run, didn't he? St Covert also had a nice run for him without too much pressure.
That's Wayne Harris aboard St Covert leading and Blevik sitting right on his tail. The favourite was the Sydney youngster, Obsessed, backed into 7-4. He ran more like something that had slipped in from southern Queensland than Sydney. He was never a chance and ran well below his form.
He's last in the Cerise at the moment. I'd like to bring Max in here, Keith, because you were most impressed with him at Newcastle, Max, Obsessed.
Yes, that wasn't the real Obsessed. I hope they checked his brands before the race, because I can assure you Obsessed was a much better horse than that. It's nice to get Keith Hillier's view on these matters, because a week ago he was bagging St Covert, so he'll no doubt come over to Obsessed too. That was not the real Obsessed. He is a much better horse than that. It'll be interesting to see how he pulled up.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it needs some improvement, Max, he's lost me as any sort of...
It happens every week, Keith.
Keith, just changing the subject for a moment, Racer's Edge, Blevik, who would be the favourite for the Caulfield Guineas as Covered at this stage?
Racer's Edge.
Oh, fair enough. That's in a couple of weeks' time. What about Max's Sydney horse, Air Seattle, who just got home in the trophy race? It was a blanket finish, wasn't it? He's about a neck off the lead here, about to go to the front, Air Seattle.
Of course, at this stage, we'd had enough of Sydney horses with Obsessed into 7-4 and unplaced, so we let Air Seattle drip from 4-1 to 9-1, and again, foiled by the Sydney siders. This is a horse that ran second to Fra in a photo finish in the Caulfield Cup last week, and he's also a Derby winner. He's a very good handicapper, and surely, Bruce, this is a very good trial for the Caulfield Cup this year. It might be his turn.
Palace Rain got no room, really. He's in the middle there, and coming home pretty well, but good run by Air Seattle. Max, I can't let him get away with it. That race was run the race before Obsessed race, so unless Keith's very clever, he didn't know that Obsessed was going to run that badly.
Well, the point with Air Seattle too is he got out from 4s to 8s because he is still underdone. He's still got a lot of improvement, but certainly Palace Rain should have just about won the race.
And John, what about your prospects for the spring? I know we've talked about your two top horses, March Hare and Ruslan. Are they the big keys to your spring?
Yes, unfortunately Clocker got hurt, not too seriously, but enough not to continue on. So. And Skillful Star fractured a cannon bone last week at Rose Hill, so probably they're my main 4 chances for the spring. And
what about a 2-year-old? Have you got one that might show up in the spring? All of Australia's watching, John. They'd love a tip.
I've only had 4 2-year-olds in training so far, and I've only trialled one, so I'm really waiting to see if any of them show enough to go on.
How many has John Hawkes had in training, Max? John's got 4. How many's John had?
I think at the last count 133, but we can't let John Morris go without a tip. I do think March Hare will go very, very well in the Epsom. What sort of a leg up are you going to give us?
Well, I'd be very happy if he got just a bit better run on the outside of a couple from the 800 home, and I think he'll be pretty competitive and quite a truly run mile, which those main ones at Randwick are.
John, good luck with that. We'll be back in a fortnight's time, Keith. Max, you'll be in the studio down here in Melbourne, and the sun will be shining on your...
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
We're looking forward to having you, aren't we, Keith?
Well, do you want... Oh, yes, of course we are. I'll lie to.
We've got to go. We'll take a break. Kate's back after this about Everett Smith, the fantastic Dallas cowboy.